Through the blurred frame, Clara clutched the old photograph, her fingers tracing the dark edges. "There's nothing here," she sighed, staring at the black and white image of an empty street taken through a window. Her short brown hair fell over her eyes, and she flicked it back impatiently. "You're missing the point," Ethan muttered from across the room, the ladder creaking beneath him as he painted the gallery wall. His loose, faded flannel shirt swung as he stepped down to reload his roller. His curly dark hair bounced with every movement, casting fleeting shadows across his thoughtful expression. "It's alive, Clara. You just don't want to see it." "Alive?" Clara scoffed, tossing the photo onto the messy floor. "It's too dark. Says nothing. Photos should speak, tell stories. This one's mute." Ethan paused, balancing the paint roller against the wall. "Or maybe you're not listening." Clara rolled her eyes, sinking down to the gallery floor, cross-legged amidst the scattered photographs. The vibrant paint splatter covering the ground contrasted the bleakness of the image in her hand. The gallery's chaotic floor had a certain charm, a vibrancy that Clara adored. Ethan, of course, was adamant about keeping the floors untouched. She reached into the basket beside her, pulling out another photo for their exhibition. Ethan, meanwhile, crouched beside her, picking up the discarded image. He studied it with those deep, thoughtful eyes Clara had fallen for. "I think this one belongs," he said softly, offering it back to her. Clara frowned, staring at the image with disdain. "Fine, it can go in the back, where no one will notice." Ethan chuckled, sliding the photo into her hand. "Deal. But you can decide the order." Clara sighed but relented, a small smile tugging at her lips as Ethan leaned closer, his presence grounding her frustrations. The vintage camera in Clara's hands was old but familiar. Its mechanics creaked as she forced it open, revealing the worn leather and metal frame of the Polaroid 210 she'd salvaged from her mother's attic. The camera had been a relic, barely functioning, until Olivia, the gallery's owner, helped her find someone to repair it. Ethan's arms wrapped gently around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Are you going to take the first photo?" "No," Clara said, placing her hand over his. "I want Dad to have that honor." Her voice softened, filled with nostalgia. She knew that the film only held 8 shots, but she wanted the first to be his. It didn't matter if the moment was imperfect or if his hand shook when pressing the shutter. All she wanted was for her father to take the picture. As Clara waited, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, Clara?" She turned to see the gallery assistant holding an open laptop. His brow was furrowed. "There's an issue with the schedule for the exhibition cleanup." Clara shook her head. "We told Olivia we'd handle it ourselves." "I know, but there's been some confusion with the times," the assistant explained hesitantly, glancing at Ethan. Before Clara could speak, Ethan stepped forward, his tone gentle but firm. "We'll take care of it, don't worry. Clara, go greet your dad. I'll handle this." Clara's heart swelled. She pressed a kiss to Ethan's cheek. "You're the best," she whispered before rushing outside, camera in hand, searching for her father. Outside, Clara spotted her dad, his white hair gleaming under the sun. He was seated in his wheelchair, his eyes twinkling despite his frailty. As she approached, the familiar warmth of his smile erased the tension from her body. "Dad," she called, lifting the camera. "How about you take the first picture?" Her father's laughter echoed in the air, and as he reached for the camera, the rollers whirred to life, capturing the moment in a single shot. Clara had discovered the little gallery by chance, nestled between overpriced boutiques and cafes. The space had drawn her in, but her enthusiasm was short-lived as she viewed the featured photographs. "This is terrible," she muttered under her breath. Beside her, a girl with a messy bun of blonde hair and oversized glasses nodded. "Yeah, it's not exactly inspiring, is it?" Clara turned, surprised by the stranger's quiet agreement. The girl, dressed in a frayed denim jacket and worn sneakers, looked out of place in the polished gallery. Her eyes, however, were sharp, hiding behind her casual appearance. "They're just empty," Clara said, gesturing to the photos on the wall. "I don't get it. There's so much potential, but these just fall flat." The girl smiled faintly, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Maybe that's the point. They reflect how we feel when we can't quite grasp the beauty in front of us." Clara was taken aback by the depth in her words. "I guess. But isn't it better to create something that shows hope? Something alive?" The girl tilted her head, considering Clara's words. "Maybe. But sometimes you have to show the emptiness before you can see the hope." Before Clara could respond, a woman in a colorful scarf approached them. "Leah," the woman said, her voice gentle but firm, "you know these pieces mean a lot to the artist. Don't be so quick to dismiss them." Clara glanced at the girl Leah, who seemed suddenly small under the woman's gaze. "I wasn't dismissing them," Leah muttered. "Just offering a perspective." The woman smiled kindly at both of them. "Art is meant to be discussed, after all. But remember, sometimes the darkest pieces hold the most light." As the woman walked away, Leah looked at Clara sheepishly. "She's my boss. I probably shouldn't have said anything." Clara smirked. "Don't worry. I like people who speak their minds." Later that day, Clara sat in the gallery lost in thought. The photograph her father had taken rested in her hands, the image blurry but precious. She smiled faintly, brushing a tear away. Beside her, Ethan rearranged photos on the wall, muttering to himself. "These two need to switch places," he said, stepping back to admire his handiwork. Clara glanced up, her heart swelling with affection. "You're always rearranging things," she teased. Ethan grinned, glancing over his shoulder at her. "What can I say? I'm a perfectionist." As he worked, Clara thumbed through the photo book on her lap, feeling a strange sense of peace. She paused on a dark image, the same one Ethan had insisted belonged in the collection. For the first time, she saw what he had meant. It wasn't lifeless. It was just waiting for someone to see it clearly. With a soft smile, Clara placed the photo back, realizing that sometimes the things we deem unimportant hold the most meaning.